Welcome to Zimbali Estate's podcast series, and we thank you for joining our conversation. My name is Shannon Vermaak, and we are extremely fortunate to have a few special guests with us today to discuss the concept of living smart. Nisholan Pillay, lecturer and academic from Durban University of Technology and a professional architect, Ronald van Rensburg from Grand Control, and Lucas Ace, a renowned landscape architect from Ace & White based in Ballito. Thank you for being here to talk about smart living.
Thanks for the invite.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Shannon.
Lucas, smart living, it's obviously an extremely relevant and important topic today.
Thank you, Shannon. I always like to start with references. And if we talk about smart landscapes, technology for smart landscaping, it's about how do you control all these facets with electronic data or applications on your phone or through other means. You think about lighting, you think irrigation and audio, and lately it's maintenance. You get these robot lawnmowers and they can mow your lawn. It's all smart landscaping. But if you talk about smart landscape and it's agricultural, then it's something different. And when you talk about commercial things, it's also something different. It's maybe less maintenance, but it has actually got all year round impact. So in a case where we talk environmental, it's important that we think of how can we enhance the existing landscapes to become better every day. Now, the buzzword lately is actually syntropic.
Concept of syntropic. Teach us, Lucas.
Syntropic is where you have different plant species, but they actually add into the soil. They're fixing nitrogen and they're also fixing carbon. One of the plants that's in Zimbali Estate is the spackboom. Now that is carbon sinking. Bacteria on the root system, it actually takes the carbon out of the atmosphere and put it back in the soils, and that becomes energy for other plants again.
Lucas, sustainable and smart landscaping basically emphasizes the importance of environmentally friendly practices in outdoor spaces. Could you give us an overview of what smart landscaping is actually all about?
People just need to be smart in terms of how they manage and enhance the soils. You know, basically in life, you first need to farm with soils before you can farm with plants.
That's an interesting concept.
There are so many ways to enhance it by leaving the leaves and actually always have a covering of leaves on top of the soil, which will deteriorate and also add so much more microbial kind of life to the soils.
I've heard the term xeriscaping around Zimbali Estate. Can you explain more about what that is?
Xeriscaping is a landscape which you implement and only apply water during the first year. And then afterwards, it needs to be able to actually maintain itself with no extra water. Now, we often get it in commercial landscapes where you actually ask to go totally xeriscape. And most of the landscapes in Zimbali Estate will become xeriscapes. If you only maintain it in the first establishing year with water, after that, it should be able to look after itself. Zimbali Estate is actually a good example of xeriscapes. If you think about the roadscapes, it becomes more xeriscapes, just almost changes every year. So over time, you get a succession of plants that actually like to be in that position as a xeriscape plant.
Brilliant. So Lucas, why the focus on indigenous plants? Are the benefits really as big as they claim?
The indigenous plants actually refer to plants within the boundaries of the South African kind of a structure. But plants are not confined by boundaries. They're actually endemic to certain areas and have certain biomes in which they actually overgrow both sides of boundaries. So I think it's an unrealistic and unfair word to coin to plants and wildlife. I actually think the right word to use for Zimbali Estate is endemic planting.
Okay, so what is the difference between endemic and indigenous?
Endemic planting is where the plants actually come from a region of, let's say, a radius of 50 kilometers from where you want to plant it. And these plants are very well adapted to the circumstances of specifically where you want to use it.
Now that makes sense. What are some smart ways to conserve and use water in the garden, especially in this country?
To enhance soils is not a short-term thing. It's a long-term thing. And I really believe you need to get your soils in a good condition and healthy with the right microbes in it, and don't change it with too much pesticides as well as fertilizers that's artificial.
Okay.
One of the good ways to enhance the soils is to capture the water by retention dams. So most times when you have stormwater and it flows away, it actually doesn't enhance the specific areas. And for that reason, it's better to have more small retention dams, which actually slow down the flow of the water, but also allows the water to penetrate for the specific area.
Lucas, there are often architectural and design elements involved when it comes to landscaping and exteriors. Can you perhaps comment a little bit on how it is possible to incorporate sustainable and smart architecture when it comes to landscaping and the importance of applying eco-conscious design principles to this?
I think the most important thing that you can do for eco-architecture is to get your orientations correct. How can you actually utilize the natural energies of orientation to use less energy in your home? And basically, in the South African context and in Zimbali Estate, it is still good to orientate and get your energy from the north side. And I believe that's the main element you can do through smart architecture, is to really get your orientation correct.
And how does that contribute to your landscaping efforts?
In the orientation of a landscape, you never think about it, but you also have cool aspects and warm aspects in the landscape. So when you actually select plants and it's in a natural habitat, it will orientate itself towards these positions. So when you do a landscape, identify your orientation and use the plants happy in that kind of position.
Lucas, in your view, what should we be focusing on and be more aware of when it comes to landscape architecture in our own gardens?
I think that we need to look at what is the family's passion that actually lives there. If you don't have the passion to get your hands dirty in the landscape, select the kind of plants that will survive themselves in your kind of position. In most cases in Zimbali Estate, you will not interfere because it's such an indigenous landscape. But it is important that you then plant the right kind of plants to sustain wildlife. And if that is your passion, just plant the right kind of plants that will be food for the butterflies.
I love that. Can you tell us about some of your most exciting landscape architectural projects and how they epitomize great landscape architecture and design, especially in terms of eco-principles and sustainability?
We've been involved in many projects from the Middle East to Africa and almost the whole world. And every area has got its own specific challenges. One of the big challenges was to create natural habitats in the UAE for endangered wildlife.
Sure, that's interesting.
We've done a design long-term forest on the Isle of Man that needs to be in full growth after 100 years. So there we took the Fibonacci principle. And we actually used this as the whole concept where we started off as a sky mirror with water reflection and then used the spiral of Fibonacci and actually built a whole series of different plant species as you spiral out to the outside. And as you walk, you experience all these different things. The sad thing is you will never see the full-grown aspect of it.
It needs 100 years.
What I like about it is the fact that the client was prepared to do this for the future. My reference nowadays is botanical landscapes. How can you actually change entrances to estates to rather make them more botanical orientated than building orientated? Because the landscapes only get better over time and more impressive. And we make use now of boulevards or trees of note as reference elements rather than the building. It's a mind shift to think that you can almost build a cage and green it up.
Any last thoughts about smart landscaping?
To be connected to the sky and to be connected to the treetops is much more important than connected to the ground. One can really connect more to the outside by having your visuals connected on the upper half of your building. Bring in nature, the landscape into your home by connecting to the sky. Then I promote doors in cavity walls. By hiding all your doors or sliding them away behind the wall, it actually enhances a lot of your connection. So you need to open yourself more to a pavilion kind of feel, connect to the landscape, no kind of interferences in between.
Perfect. Nisholan, please can you give us an overview of what sustainable and smart architecture is?
Environmentally sustainable architecture or sustainable architecture in general, it refers to a holistic approach to architecture in a very humanistic way. So sustainability refers to a threefold dialect, and that's environmental sustainability, social sustainability, and economic sustainability. And they all work together to produce the concept of sustainability. So if we look at the general terms, and if we look at doing it in buildings or the technical environmental terms, we're talking about how could we make those buildings more efficient using principles of architecture. So passive solar design is one of the most important things. That's the correct orientation of buildings. And that helps with bringing natural daylight into buildings, good ventilation of spaces, so that we don't require air conditioning and artificial lighting during the day. So from an architectural point of view, buildings can be designed quite sustainably without using any technology.
Smart practices.
Smart practices, yeah. From the smart side of things and where we're moving towards the smart cities and a connected city and the Internet of Things, if we look at smart architecture and how it's helping us now is that we could actually study our buildings, or our buildings give us information in the form of big data. And we could use that data to actually tweak our building and make it better. So say, for instance, a space is quite hot during the day. We could understand why. Why is it getting hot? Does it have enough shading? Does it require air conditioning? Does it require double glaze? And it all boils down to human comfort. And that's why we move to sustainable buildings. So from a holistic point of view, everything time to discuss this issue. So energy efficiency can happen in several different ways. One we could use is the actual energy that we use to power the building. So I'm talking from an electrical standpoint. But energy efficiency doesn't only end there. It works together to respect the human being at the end of the day.
So then how do we increase energy efficiency and reduce environmental impact?
Yeah, so energy efficiency is actually the root of sustainability. And with the issues that we're having now in South Africa with the power crisis, I think it's extremely important. And this energy efficiency also works from a thermal conductivity point of view.
Absolutely.
And where the building actually traps in heat or keeps heat out. South Africa is positioned well to receive a high amount of sunlight. So we should take advantage of that. So solar is really great for, bringing in a renewable source of energy. And if we use things like renewable energy, we reduce our load on the non-renewables like coal, the things that actually harm the environment. So I think a reduction in non-renewables and an increase in renewables will reduce the environmental impact. But beyond that, we could also create buildings that use certain types of materials to even reduce the renewable energy.
So what would you summarize as the key elements of green building?
To summarize there, Shannon, green building has several different aspects. From a top-down in a building, we can start to think about things like heat retention in buildings. How do we design our roofs? Do the roofs actually keep the heat out, or do they keep it in? And it depends on which climatic area that we are in. Beyond that, if we look at our envelope of the building, the envelope is your walls, your exterior walls. And looking at your walls, you could think about this as well from a heating and cooling perspective, because your walls actually absorb heat. At night, when the temperature reduces, that heat gets pulled into the building. We could also look at resource conservation. We could conserve resources by building buildings that actually respond to the environment that they are in. When we build on sites, we really take the topography into account, and we build with the site. We keep the ecology of the site as well. And Zimbali Estate is very special in that way, and I think that's why it holds that value, or even from an ecology point of view. Considering that we're already having water problems, conserving our water is of utmost importance.
Absolutely.
Every drop of it. So I think that in a holistic way, there's several key elements of green building. It's the type of materials we use, how we're bringing energy into the building sustainably, how are we conserving the resources that were naturally there, our water, soil, vegetation, and bringing the nature back. And human beings need to be with nature, and Zimbali does it so well.
We have residents at Zimbali Estate looking to renovate their homes in order to make them more sustainable for the future. Can you explain to listeners what cutting-edge technology and eco-conscious design principles they can apply to the renovation of their existing homes? And then also, what new home builders should be looking to do in their building construction.
Let me start by saying that in South Africa, we're governed by the SANS 10400 or the National Building Regulations. And part of the National Building Regulations, SANS 10400, is Part XA, which is energy efficiency in buildings. So before we even start designing or even start construction on a renovation or a new build, we have to comply with these acts. And from an energy efficiency point of view, again, I'll go back to the human comfort, where our glazing has to now comply with the standard of Part XA, where it needs to either be shaded or possibly use double glazing or the use of e-glass just to reduce the heat load within the building. So the law is out there for us to
sort of follow.
But in terms of, advising a client, we can go even beyond that law. Nothing stops us from actually doing better than what the minimum standards are. And generally we do. In an estate like Zimbali, clients spend a lot of money to create their dream homes. And why not create this dream home to be comfortable to them, the human? So if we look at the different technologies we could use, one is the glazing aspect. We can actually reduce quite a bit of heating load in buildings with glazing and treat the facades with sun control devices, etc. Two, we can also think about, obviously, reducing the energy load in building with solar panels or other forms of renewable energy. We can start using finishes that are less harmful to the environment, like your paints, carpets, your ceilings. So there's more and more new technologies every day that's environmentally responsible. And it's becoming the new standard, like paints, for example. You can just buy an environmentally friendly paint off the shelf and it doesn't even say environmentally friendly because it's just a new norm. Even from the side of building design, the way the architect puts a building together, if we consider things like green roofs, which reduce the heat load on buildings, we're always putting forward these things. Architecture is not constant. It doesn't stay the same. It moves with time and with people. And as people change their views on things and as things change in the world, these technologies or these design aspirations start to become reality. Like green roofs 10 or 20 years ago, people were like, oh, no, it's a nightmare with waterproofing. Now it's a common thing. We're doing them everywhere. They look beautiful. They bring nature back to the building. The birds come back. The bees come back. And at the same time, we're keeping our buildings cool.
That's a great example, but basically there's many options for new build and existing homes to become more sustainable and eco-friendly.
There's so many options, Shannon, and only when you really start sitting down with the client as an architect and actually understand what their aspirations for their building is, you can really go to town with these things. But it's for the benefit of the client. And if we benefit them in an environmentally sustainable way, we benefit the entire world and the entire environment. There's also smart home technology, which controls lighting, appliances, and home security, and which is a vital part of green building. But I'll let Ronald speak more about that.
Yes, so Ronald, what is smart technology and how is it transforming the way we interact with our homes inside and outside?
Shannon, it's a very interesting question. So smart technology is all around us, from our watches to our phones to our TVs, smart kettles. Everything is smart nowadays. So smart technology are devices that now obviously connect to the internet. You can mold them, you can change them to suit yourself and to suit your house and how you live in your lifestyle. That's what smart technology should be about and is about.
So how does smart technology benefit the homeowner?
So smart home, in my mind, should work for the owner, not only when they're there, but when they're away too. When you're not at home, things like TV's not on, aircon's not on, blinds closed. And then when you're living in the house should live for you. It should work for you. It should be something that is molded to you and your family. Lights should be off on rooms that are not being used. The home should work around you. It saves electricity. It saves unnecessary usage of devices. And that's what a smart home should do for you. Smart TVs, smart blinds, smart kettles should all tie together and do what you want them to do when you want them to do. When you approach your house, the alarm should go off, the light should come on, the gate should open. You enter your house, the door will already unlock as you approach the house. It's called geofencing, which is an interesting piece of technology. Just by using your phone and where your phone is, as you approach the house, it knows you're home or knows that your husband's home or your kids, and it'll do certain things. So it'll play your music, put the lights on that you like, and set the mood of the house that you like. When your kids come home after school, it knows that they're home, it unlocks, it then sends you a message saying the kids are home, everyone's safe, a little screenshot of them walking in the door. That's what a smart home should do Making the house smart then also gives you the option to tie in with things like solar and water conservation, so that you're saving electricity, not just putting solar panels on your roof and patching a problem. Having a house that uses a lot of electricity and putting solar panels on the roof helps, but it doesn't solve the problem. You want to make a house that's eco-friendly and doesn't use electricity, and that's what smart homes can do. They can dim lights in the middle of the night, so you've got your outside lights on at 100%. 9 o'clock, they'll dim down to 60%, so you're not wasting that electricity at night. All sorts of things. If you can imagine it, can be done with smart homes and automation.
Wow, it really is endless. So can you give us some insight in terms of near future?
Yeah, well, some will find it scary and some will find it really awesome. But I think AI is going to come in, and our houses will eventually be those houses that you can talk to and that will welcome you when you come home and that you can interact with. I think that's the next level that's coming in. We've already got Siri and Alexa and Bixby and all these things that we can talk to, but I think that's now going to control the home even more and actually become the heart of the house. Now we can already say, Alexa, switch the lights on, or Bixby, please open the door. I think in the future, it's going to say, welcome home. Would you like me to put the TV on? Would you like me to boil the kettle? It'll actually ask you those questions because it'll know your habits and it'll know how you live and interact with you. And I think that's what's coming.
That is exciting and scary, but exciting.
But exciting.
So Zimbali Estate is well known to be an extremely safe place to live. But how can we use these technologies to make our homes even safer?
Technology has come so far, like your camera technology, facial recognition, and cameras that can recognize a human over a cat or a dog. You can have cameras set up at your house. When you're away from your house, can send you notifications to say, well, someone's just walked into the kitchen, and actually send you a screenshot of that right then and there. That is then tied with the alarm. You can go straight to the control room and say something's happening at the house. Alarm technology that is now wireless. The batteries last 5-6 years on some of them. Infrared cameras that if people are hiding in bushes, you can still see. The technology now is there to safeguard the homes on a much higher level. The essence of security and smart technology is peace of mind. So there's water leak detectors that you can put on the floor of a basement or below a geyser, smoke detectors. There's all kind of things to warn ahead of time so that you can actually react and do something about it. And then there's a thing with home automation called moccupation, making a house look like it's lived in even when it's not. Opening and closing automated blinds, putting lights on in different rooms, putting TVs on, putting music on, so the house looks like it's occupied.
Ronald, Zimbali Estate is an established estate, and a lot of our residents would like to upgrade their homes to be smart, eco-conscious homes. What can they do to achieve that?
Well, it's a great question. So obviously lighting is a big thing. Lighting, an older home that's 20, 25 years old will use a lot of electricity on lighting. Nowadays, lighting is a small usage because of your new LED fluorescent globes. So if you retrofit your house, you'll take your lighting down to a tenth of what it was using. And then that helps with solar, that helps with everything. Your batteries now last longer. The solar panels can now run other things rather than just your lighting. Your geysers, by putting more efficient heat pumps in. The heat pumps now only work when you need them. Catching your grey water and rainwater and reusing it. Instead of now watering the garden and watering the grass, you can have irrigation systems that are now set to not only just go on at a certain time, but go on when there's no hot sun. Retrofitting aircons to inverter aircons. Smart technology like that is readily available. A lot of the stuff is wireless now, so everything works off Wi-Fi. So renovating a home or bringing it to the future doesn't mean chasing walls and running pipes and destroying a house to rebuild it.
Fantastic. This has been a really interesting and insightful discussion, and we really appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you, Shannon. It's important actually to make time to share things with one another, because lately we only watch our cell phones and we maybe on TV, where this kind of interaction is actually what we need as human beings.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to better understand these key areas of smart living. For our audience, if you would like more information about this conversation or Zimbali Estate, visit our website, zimbali.com. Thanks for listening.